Senior Minister I was talking to last week talked about the PM's approach as being a safety-first approach, because any spike in the virus and uptick in the number of deaths falls very heavily on his shoulders alone. But I think what we saw today was the Prime Minister taking a slightly different approach, trying to walk a tightrope between keeping the economy open and also trying to drive down the virus. So he is not going as far as Nicola Sturgeon has. He's not going as far, actually, as his own scientific advisors advised last week, when the SAGE, the Scientific Advisory Group, suggested that there could be this circuit breaker, short period of a starker lockdown and restriction of social movement and social interactions in order to try and kill off the transmission. He's decided not to do that. He doesn't want to shut the economy down for 2 to 3 weeks. He wants instead slightly lighter restrictions, but for a longer period of time. But that is critically dependent on compliance. And I think what we're going to hear from him in just a few minutes is really the push that we all have to come together like we did in the first wave to try and drive down case numbers and keep that R number at 1 or below 1. But 6 months has passed. It's much more complicated now. There's many more things to weigh up, and the critical question is, will the public follow him, or have they grown weary of how we have to live?
And many of the Prime Minister's own backbenchers are saying, ignore us at your peril. They're now calling for more government scrutiny.
Yeah, and look, from the backbench point of view, they have their postbags filling up with constituents. Some want stricter restrictions. Many are businesses that worried about their livelihoods, and employees worried about their livelihoods, or people not being able to get treatment for cancer or other long-term health illnesses because of COVID-19. So there are many different things to balance up here, and what the Prime Minister is trying to do is walk this tightrope of trying to keep the virus under control, the economy open. His advisors will tell you that they don't know if it will work, because much of it does depend on compliance. But from the backbencher point of view, if there was grumblings about it today, you didn't really see that in the Commons. I think, they're coming in behind him today, but you are right in that they want further scrutiny, and the Coronavirus Act has to be renewed to give the government emergency powers next week, and MPs, backbench MPs, definitely want concessions from the government about more parliamentary oversight.
And just very briefly, Beth, we are expecting to hear from the Prime Minister in the next few moments. Largely there is support from the Labour Party on this.
Yes. Keir Starmer supporting the measures, saying he would support the lockdown measures, but not supporting the Prime Minister, critical of him personally.
OK, Beth, many thanks indeed. Well, you're watching Sky News. It's almost 8 o'clock and time for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's address to the nation from Downing Streets.
Good evening. The struggle against COVID is the single biggest crisis the world has faced in my lifetime. In less than a year, this disease has killed almost 1 million people and caused havoc to economies everywhere. Here in the UK, we mourn every person we've lost, and we grieve with their families. And yet I'm more certain than ever that this is a struggle that humanity will win, and we in this country will win. And to achieve what we must, I want to talk to you directly tonight about the choices that we face. None of them easy. And why we must take action now. I know that we can succeed because we have succeeded before. When the sickness took hold in this country in March, we pulled together in a spirit of national sacrifice and community. We followed the guidance to the letter. We stayed at home, protected the NHS, and saved thousands of lives. And for months, with those disciplines of social distancing, we've kept that virus at bay. But we have to acknowledge that this is a great and freedom-loving country, and while the vast majority have complied with the rules, there have been too many breaches too many opportunities for our invisible enemy to slip through undetected. The virus has started to spread again in an exponential way. Infections are up, hospital admissions are climbing. We can see what's happening in France and Spain. And we know, alas, that this virus is no less fatal than it was in the spring, and that the vast majority of our people are no less susceptible. And the iron laws of geometrical progression are shouting at us from the graphs that we risk many more deaths, many more families losing loved ones before their time. And I know that faced with that risk, the British people will want their government to continue to fight to protect them, you. And that's what we're doing night and day. And yet the single greatest weapon we bring to this fight is the common sense of the people themselves, the joint resolve of this country to work together to suppress COVID-19. So today I set out a package of tougher measures in England. Early closing for pubs, bars, table service only, closing businesses that are not COVID secure, expanding the use of face coverings, new fines for those that fail to comply, once again asking office workers to work from home if they can, while enforcing the rule of 6 indoors and outdoors. A tougher package of national measures combined with the potential for tougher local restrictions for areas already in lockdown. I know that this approach, robust but proportionate, already carries the support of all the main parties in Parliament. After discussion with colleagues in the devolved administrations, I believe this broad approach is shared across the whole UK. And to those who say we don't need this stuff and we should leave people to take their own risks, I say these risks are not our own. The tragic reality of having COVID is that your mild cough can be someone else's death knell. And as for the suggestion that we should simply lock up the elderly and the vulnerable, with all the suffering that would entail, I must tell you that this is just not realistic. Because if you let the virus rip through the rest of the population, it would inevitably find its way through to the elderly as well, and in much greater numbers. That's why we need to suppress the virus now. And as for that minority who may continue to flout the rules, we will enforce those rules with tougher penalties and fines of up to £10,000. We will put more police out on the streets and use the army to backfill if necessary. And of course, I'm deeply spiritually reluctant to make any of these impositions or infringe anyone's freedom. But unless we take action, the risk is that we will have to go for tougher measures later when the deaths have already mounted and we have a huge caseload of infection such as we had in the spring. If we let this virus get out of control now, it would mean that our NHS had no space, once again, to deal with cancer patients and millions of other non-COVID medical needs. And if we were forced into a new national lockdown, that would threaten not just jobs and livelihoods, but the loving human contact on which we all depend. It would mean renewed loneliness and confinement for the elderly and vulnerable, and ultimately it would threaten once again the education of our children. We must do all we can to avoid going down that road again. But if people don't follow the rules we've set out, then we must reserve the right to go further. We must take action now, because a stitch in time saves 9. And this way, we can keep people in work, we can keep our shops and our schools open, and we can keep our country moving forward while we work together to suppress the virus. That is our strategy. And if we can follow this package together, then I know we can succeed, because in so many ways, we're better prepared than before. We have the PPE, we have the beds, we have the Nightingales, we have new medicines pioneered in this country that can help save lives. And though our doctors and our medical advisors are rightly worried about the data now and the risks over winter, they are unanimous that things will be far better by the spring, when we have not only the hope of a vaccine, but one day soon, and I must stress that we're not there yet, of mass testing so efficient that people will be able to be tested in minutes so they can do more of the things they love. That's the hope, that's the dream. It's hard, but it's attainable, and we're working as hard as we can to get there. But until we do, we must rely on our willingness to look out for each other, to protect each other. Never in our history has our collective destiny and our collective health depended so completely on our individual behaviour. If we follow these simple rules together, we will get through this winter together. There are unquestionably difficult months to come, and the fight against COVID is by no means over. And I have no doubt, however, that there are great days ahead. But now is the time for us all to summon the discipline and the resolve and the spirit of togetherness that will carry us through.
Well, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson finishing his address to the nation. The fight against COVID-19 is by no means over, but we will get through this. Let's bring in our political editor, Beth Rigby, who's with me in the studio. Beth, your analysis of what the Prime Minister just said.
Well, as we expected, he really did lay it on all of us about the critical juncture we are facing in terms of dealing with this virus and the enormity of the moment in terms of that second wave. Indeed, he began that address saying the struggle against COVID is the single biggest crisis the world has faced in my lifetime. But he also said he was more certain than ever this is a struggle that humanity can win, that we can win. But then he went on to really try and hammer home that idea that this really is a collective endeavour to get through the winter together. He thanked people for the efforts that they had made in that first lockdown. But then he said to them, to all of us, we need to summon the discipline, the resolve and the spirit of togetherness that will carry us through. He warned people that if they didn't comply, he would have to go further. And he reminded people that it was not just down to individual action, that this was collective responsibility, that if we all don't play our part, eventually this virus will travel through the population and it will affect the elderly and it will affect the vulnerable. And so he ended really saying, never in our history has our collective destiny and our collective health depended so completely on our individual behaviour. If we follow these simple rules together, we will get through this winter together. He told us there were difficult months ahead. He told us all to pull together. So that was the message from the Prime Minister, and I think really it is, to put it bluntly, also an idea that he's trying to convey to all of us that we are, if you like, in the last chance saloon, that if we don't adhere to the social distancing rules, if we don't all play our part, then we could be facing a second wave and all of the unpalatable consequences that that will bring for us individually, for our families and for our communities. So really there, the Prime Minister trying to appeal to the British public. The question is, after 6 long months of this, of stop-start in terms of restriction, will the public follow him still? And can he lead us through this second wave? And that's the big question in the coming weeks.
And on that point, will the challenge down the road be to make sure that the devolved governments will stay on the same page? Nicola Sturgeon saying something very different to what the Prime Minister said today.
Well, I think the challenge for him in the coming weeks and months is whether he is proved wrong and she is proved right, if you like. And the challenge for Mr Johnson is whether he has today made the right call, whether he's got the right balance in terms of protecting the economy versus the restrictions that he has brought forward, or whether in a few weeks he might have to go further and go faster. And that is the big oh no, his team will hope that he's done enough to contain the virus, but they can't control that because they can't control millions of people and how they behave. They will have to hope that people follow the rules. But after the U-turns, after some examples of people not following the rules, are the public still with him? And that's what we're going to find out in the coming weeks.
That is a big question. Okay, Beth, for now, thank you. Well, we're going to turn to Scotland and an address by the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon.
The last 6 months have been unprecedented. They've been the hardest many of us have ever lived through. But through our collective efforts across Scotland, we did beat COVID back. As a result, although too much heartbreak has been endured and too many families are grieving, many lives were also saved. But as we enter winter, and with many lockdown restrictions now thankfully lifted, the challenge is once again getting harder. Albeit from the very low level we achieved in the summer, cases are now rising again. In the past 3 weeks, they have almost trebled. And as the virus spreads, more people are being admitted to hospital again and sadly dying. So we are once again at a tipping point. We must act to get COVID back under control and protect the things that matter most to us. In a global pandemic of a virus with as yet no vaccine, we simply can't have 100% normality. No country can. So we must choose our priorities. Our priorities are saving lives and protecting health, keeping schools open, restarting NHS services, ensuring care homes are safe, and protecting jobs and livelihoods. It is to safeguard these priorities that I must ask all of you again to make sacrifices. Sacrifices for our national well-being. They are not easy, but please believe me when I say they are essential. We have decided that from Friday there will be a national curfew for pubs, bars and restaurants. They will have to close by 10 p.m. to reduce the time people spend there. And from tomorrow we are all being asked not to visit each other's homes, because we know that this is often how the virus spreads most easily from one household to another. There are exceptions for care of the vulnerable, extended households, childcare and tradespeople. But generally, by staying out of other people's houses for now, we give ourselves the best chance of bringing COVID back under control. We can still meet outdoors with one other household in groups of up to 6 people. And because we know this is especially difficult for children and young people, we've tried to build in more flexibility for you. If you are younger than 12, there are no limits on playing with your friends outdoors. And if you are between 12 and 17, you can meet your friends outdoors in groups of 6, and you don't all have to be from just 2 households. Now, for everyone, adults and children, I know that today must feel like a step backwards. But please know that thanks to all your efforts over the last 6 months, we are in a much stronger position now than in the spring. Cases are rising, but less rapidly than back then. Our test and protect system is working well. It is tracing contacts and breaking chains of transmission. We have much more information on how and where the virus spreads, and we know what we need to do to protect ourselves and protect others. And all of us have a part to play. So I'm asking everyone, please follow the new rules. They will make a difference. If you can and haven't already, please also go to protect.scot and download the Protect Scotland app, so more people who might be at risk of the virus can be traced quickly and asked to self-isolate. And remember facts, face coverings, avoid crowded areas, clean your hands and surfaces, keep 2-metre distance, and self-isolate and get tested if you have symptoms. Finally, I know that all of this has been incredibly tough, and 6 months on it only gets tougher. But never forget that humanity has come through even bigger challenges than this one. And though it doesn't feel like it now, this virus will pass. It won't last forever, and one day, hopefully soon, we will be looking back on it, not living through it. So though we are all struggling with this, and believe me, we are all struggling, let's pull together. Let's keep going, Try to keep smiling, keep hoping, and keep looking out for each other. Be strong, be kind, and let's continue to act out of love and solidarity. I probably will never find the words to thank all of you enough for the enormous sacrifices you have made so far, and I am sorry to be asking for more. But a belief I hold on to, and one I am asking you to keep faith with in the moments when it all feels too hard, is this. If we stick with it, and above all, if we stick together, we will get through it. Thank you.